On August 216 BC, an unimaginable horror unfolded on the plains near Cannae, scarring the Roman psyche and redefining military catastrophe. Welcome back to the History Atlas. In less than 8 hours, a Roman army of over 86,000 men was all but annihilated. This was more than a defeat, it was an unprecedented obliteration, with some 70,000 Roman soldiers and officers perishing, making it the highest single-day casualty count in ancient military history. The sheer scale of this loss, against a Carthaginian force of roughly 50,000, largely composed of mercenaries, presented a chilling paradox. How could the rising republic, renowned for its discipline and numerical strength, suffer such a complete and devastating annihilation at the hands of a numerically inferior foe? This massacre, this total destruction, was the meticulously engineered work of one man, Hannibal Barca, a military genius whose tactics at Cannae would echo through the annals of warfare for millennia. The roots of the catastrophe at Cannae were sown decades earlier, in the aftermath of the First Punic War. Carthage, once a dominant maritime power, suffered a humiliating defeat, losing critical territories like Sicily and Sardinia, and burdened with a crushing war indemnity. Rome, victorious and increasingly arrogant, assumed Carthage's power was broken. However, this overlooked a simmering resentment, particularly within the influential Barca family. Hamilcar Barca, a Carthaginian general, harbored an absolute hatred for Rome, a deeply personal affront. He made his young son, Hannibal, swear an eternal oath of vengeance against Rome, a generational commitment that would define the boy's life. Hannibal's childhood was consequently spent not in luxury, but in the harsh crucible of military camps in Hispania, where his father painstakingly rebuilt Carthaginian strength. He was trained in strategy, tactics, and leadership from an early age, observing the brutal realities of war. This rigorous upbringing, steeped in a singular purpose, forged Hannibal into the military genius he would become, capable of understanding both the diverse forces under his command and the Roman enemy's psyche. The tensions finally ignited in 219 BC, when Hannibal, now commander of Carthaginian forces in Hispania, audaciously seized Saguntum, a Roman allied city. This calculated challenge to Roman authority ignited the catastrophic conflict that would test Rome. Hannibal Barca's invasion of Italy was an act of audacious will. In 218 BC, he initiated an epic journey over the Alps, leading an army estimated at 90,000 infantry, 12,000 cavalry, and 37 war elephants. This monumental undertaking was a gamble against geography and time. The passage itself was a brutal crucible. Mountain passes claimed thousands of lives, frostbite and avalanches decimated his ranks, and nearly all the elephants perished. It was staggering attrition. Yet, from this ordeal, Hannibal emerged in northern Italy with approximately 26,000 elite, hardened troops, a force forged in endurance, possessing an unyielding resolve that set its commander apart. Hannibal's unexpected arrival in their heartland shocked the Roman Republic. Their initial confidence, rooted in numerical superiority, was swiftly shattered by two unprecedented defeats. At the Battle of Trebia in 218 BC, Hannibal masterfully ambushed and decimated a consular army. The following year, at Lake Trasimene, he executed a devastating ambush that annihilated another Roman force, killing consul Gaius Flaminius. These were profound humiliations that exposed Rome's vulnerabilities, particularly its over-reliance on direct, frontal engagement and strategic inflexibility. The traditional Roman legions, accustomed to grinding down foes through sheer weight of numbers, found themselves outmaneuvered and outthought. In response to this existential threat, Rome set aside its pride and appointed Quintus Fabius Maximus as dictator, tasked with a strategy of attrition. Known as the delayer, Fabius avoided direct confrontation, instead shadowing Hannibal, cutting off supplies, and engaging in skirmishes to wear down Carthaginian forces. This Fabian strategy, while sound and eventually effective, proved deeply unpopular in Rome. Both the Roman public and the aristocratic elite, witnessing their lands ravaged and armies humiliated, grew impatient for a decisive battle, a glorious engagement that would sweep Hannibal from Italy. This fervent desire, born of pride and frustration, created immense pressure on future commanders, setting the stage for disaster. On the plains near the Aufidus River, the stage was meticulously set for a clash of military philosophies. Two vastly different forces, born of opposing strategic doctrines and led by contrasting commanders, prepared to meet their destiny. Facing Rome's colossal might stood Hannibal's formidable, though numerically inferior, force of some 50,000 men. This was no homogeneous legion, but a carefully curated tapestry of veteran warriors, 32,000 seasoned infantry, predominantly elite Iberians and ferocious Gauls, buttressed by 8,000 cavalry, the swift Numidian light horse, masters of harassment, and the heavy Iberian and Gallic shock cavalry. Crucially, Hannibal had also integrated disciplined African infantry, trained in the Roman style, within his ranks. It was a force unified, not by shared origin, but by the absolute authority and singular genius of its commander, who wielded this diverse army as a single, devastating instrument. Across the field, Rome presented a stark contrast. A titan of nearly 86,000 men, comprising 76,000 heavy infantry organized into 8 full legions and 10,000 cavalry. Their strength lay in legendary discipline, unwavering organization, and the sheer endurance of citizen soldiers and loyal Italian allies. Yet, this strength contained a critical vulnerability: its leadership. The Republic entrusted its army to 2 consuls, Lucius Aemilius Paulus and Gaius Terentius Varro, who alternated daily command. Paulus, the cautious strategist, was often at odds with Varro, the impetuous general, who favored direct confrontation. This bifurcated command created not synergy, but the chilling prospect of indecision and conflicting directives. Rome's overconfidence, rooted in its seemingly inexhaustible manpower and rigid adherence to established tactics, had become a profound strategic flaw. The plains near the Aufidus, perfect for massed formations, would become the proving ground for these contrasting approaches. On the morning of August 2, 216 BC, near Cannae, a Roman supply depot, Hannibal, had shrewdly seized the Carthaginian general, unveiled his ultimate trap. Even the wind, blowing dust into the advancing Romans' faces, seemed to conspire in his design. This was a meticulous blueprint for annihilation, reflecting a profound understanding of both his diverse troops and the rigid psychology of the Roman legions. Hannibal's formation was a study in controlled deception. At its heart, he placed his less disciplined Gallic and Iberian infantry, arrayed in a concave crescent, pushed forward. This bulge, deliberately appearing vulnerable, was meant to draw the overwhelming Roman legions inward. It would resist, then slowly give ground, luring the Romans deeper into a perceived victory, but in truth, into a narrowing killing zone. On the immediate flanks of this yielding center, Hannibal stationed his elite African veterans. These hardened warriors, paradoxically trained in Roman fashion, were held in reserve, carefully hidden, poised to strike. On the wings, Hannibal deployed his superior cavalry, numbering 10,000 against Rome's 7,000. Hasdrubal commanded the heavy Iberian and Gallic cavalry on one flank for a decisive blow. Maharbal led the swift Numidian light cavalry on the other, tasked with disrupting any Roman flanking maneuvers. The entire configuration was an elaborate setup for the double envelopment. Roman infantry, drawn into the sagging Carthaginian center, would be assailed from their sides by African infantry, while cavalry, having swept their Roman counterparts, converged from the rear, sealing off all escape. In stark contrast, Consul Gaius Terentius Varro clung to a belief in brute force. He ordered his colossal army, 8 legions, some 86,000 men, into a dense, deep frontal formation. His strategy was simple: overwhelm the enemy through sheer weight of numbers. Varro's blind confidence in numerical superiority and inability to foresee a tactical response beyond direct confrontation provided Hannibal with the very conditions necessary for his masterpiece to unfold. The stage was set for a demonstration of strategic genius against an empire's fatal overconfidence. As the August sun ascended on August 2, 216 BC, the Roman legions, confident in their overwhelming numbers, initiated their direct frontal assault. The initial fury of the clash was rapid. On the Roman right flank, Hasdrubal's heavy Carthaginian cavalry swiftly dismantled its Roman counterpart, pursuing their shattered remnants from the field to eliminate any threat. Simultaneously, on the Roman left, Maharbal's nimble Numidian light cavalry engaged the allied Roman horse. Their constant harassment and skilled skirmishing effectively tied down this segment of the Roman force, preventing any support for the infantry or flanking maneuvers. With the flanks thus secured, the vast Roman infantry, packed deep, pressed forward into Hannibal's concave center. This was where the illusion of victory began. The Gallic and Iberian infantry, deliberately positioned in this crescent, did not collapse. Instead, they executed a controlled, gradual retreat, deepening the concave arc and drawing the Roman mass ever inward. Roman shouts of triumph resounded. They believed they were breaking the enemy. This perception of success, however, was precisely what Hannibal had designed. With every step deeper into the Carthaginian center, the immense Roman formation became increasingly compressed. Their famed discipline and rigid order, once an asset, transformed into a liability within this narrowing space. Mobility vanished, weapons became difficult to wield, and the legions lost coherence, unknowingly sealing their own doom as they celebrated what they believed was a decisive breakthrough. The trap, meticulously set, was now springing shut. As the Roman legions pressed deeper into the yielding center, Hannibal's plan coalesced into a suffocating net. Hasdrubal's heavy cavalry, having annihilated their Roman counterparts, did not pursue. Instead, with tactical discipline, they arced around the entire Roman formation. Simultaneously, Maharbal's nimble Numidian cavalry, having contained the Roman allied cavalry, completed their own maneuver. Their combined forces converged behind the advancing Roman infantry, severing any hope of retreat or reinforcement. This pincer movement was the signal for the next devastating phase. Hannibal's elite African infantry, previously concealed on the flanks of his sagging center, now wheeled inwards. They struck the Roman legions from both sides with chilling precision. The Carthaginian line, once an inviting concave crescent, transformed into a complete ring. Roman soldiers, packed into an ever-shrinking space, were now attacked from the front by the re-engaging Gallic and Iberian infantry, and from both flanks and the rear by the African infantry and returning cavalry. Roman shouts of triumph quickly morphed into screams of horror and a desperate realization of their impossible predicament. Within this ring, the Roman legions, whose strength lay in ordered ranks and disciplined formations, found their numbers turning against them. Extreme overcrowding rendered their formidable short swords useless. There was simply no room to swing them. Shields became impediments. Cohesion, the bedrock of Roman military power, shattered under the immense claustrophobic pressure. Discipline collapsed, giving way to a primal struggle for survival. The battlefield devolved into a nightmare where men could neither fight effectively nor escape the relentless slaughter. Hannibal's flawless timing transformed the plains of Cannae into a testament to tactical genius and Rome's fatal overconfidence. Their rigid formation and the critical failure of their divided leadership had sealed the doom of tens of thousands. By late afternoon on August 2, 216 BC, the plains of Cannae had become a charnel house, a testament to Hannibal's military genius. The Roman Republic had suffered a casualty count unprecedented in its history. Estimates place the dead at a staggering 50,000 to over 70,000 Roman soldiers and officers, with some accounts pushing toward 80,000 within 8 hours. Consul Lucius Aemilius Paulus lay dead amongst his men. Beyond the sheer numbers, the loss of leadership was catastrophic. Thousands of Roman nobles, 80 of the 290 senators, 20 of 48 former consuls, and hundreds of senior officers perished. This was a decapitation of Rome's military and political elite. Only approximately 10,000 Romans were taken captive, with a few thousand, including Consul Varro, managing to escape. The chilling efficiency of Hannibal's victory was starkly illuminated by Carthaginian losses, which amounted to merely 6,000 men, predominantly the Gallic and Iberian infantry who had formed the sacrificial center, and 500 cavalry. News of this disaster sent shockwaves through Rome, plunging the Republic into an era of great mourning. Despair was palpable, leading to immediate political and economic crises. The catastrophic loss of life and prestige also compelled many southern Italian allies to defect from Rome's weakened grasp. As Hannibal surveyed the carnage, his cavalry commander, Hannibal, reportedly urged him, "You know how to win a victory, Hannibal. You do not know how to use one." He implored Hannibal to march on Rome immediately, suggesting that in 3 days they could feast in the capital. Hannibal, weighing the risks of a direct assault on a fortified city against his exhausted army, famously refused. This decision marks a critical juncture. What if Hannibal had, in that moment of unparalleled triumph and Roman vulnerability, pressed his advantage directly against the city? The course of history, undoubtedly, would have been profoundly different. The fields of Cannae fell silent on August 2, 216 BC, but the reverberations of that day's carnage would echo through military history for 2 millennia. Hannibal Barca's meticulously executed double envelopment became a textbook example of tactical brilliance, studied by generals across ages. From Frederick the Great to the architects of the German Schlieffen Plan in World War I, and even Norman Schwarzkopf's left hook during the Gulf War, the Cannae maneuver served as a chillingly effective blueprint for total battlefield annihilation. It demonstrated how a numerically inferior force, through superior strategy, unified command, and precise timing, could utterly destroy a larger adversary. Yet, this tactical masterpiece contained a profound historical paradox. While Hannibal achieved the greatest battlefield victory against Rome, he ultimately failed to break its will. The Republic, stripped of its leadership and facing an existential threat, exhibited astounding resilience. Rome did not surrender. Instead, it systematically mobilized every available resource, including arming slaves and teenagers, to rebuild its legions. The Fabian strategy, once reviled, was reinstated, denying Hannibal the decisive engagements he sought and bleeding his mercenary army through attrition. Crucially, Rome opened new fronts, striking at Carthaginian strongholds in Hispania and later invading Africa, forcing Hannibal's eventual recall. From this crucible emerged Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus, a general who not only learned from Cannae's lessons but adopted and refined Hannibal's own tactics. Scipio ultimately confronted Hannibal at Zama in 202 BC, defeating him on African soil and bringing the Second Punic War to a close. Hannibal, the undefeated tactician in Italy, was recalled, defeated, and later died in exile by suicide, denying his Roman pursuers the satisfaction of his capture. Cannae thus stands as a testament to the duality of warfare, a single general's unparalleled tactical genius, but also an empire's unyielding strategic will and capacity for adaptation. Rome's refusal to fail proved as decisive, if less dramatic, than Hannibal's brilliant generalship, underscoring that even the most perfect tactical victory may not be sufficient to defeat a nation determined to endure. Subscribe to our channel to relive these epic pages of history.